All right, so that was just moments ago there, as you're seeing right outside of the courthouse being played out there. Inside, a much different look here from the defense team and the defendants after all three men found guilty of murder charges. Let's bring in once again, as we'll be taking a look here at the different shots available to us right here on Live Now from Fox. But let's bring in right now again our legal analyst, Ben Taylor. Thank you again for joining us and staying by on this. So here we go. So we found what the verdict was. All three found guilty there of the murder counts there. But Travis McMichael, a clean sweep there, found guilty on all charges.
Yes, that's what a lot of people expected. Travis McMichael was the one who actually, pulled the trigger and shot Ahmaud Arbery. Because of that, you saw that the jury found him guilty of every single count of murder. The other counts, as you saw for the other two men, they were found guilty also. However, there was a few not guilties involved. But the person who was Travis McMichael, who actually showed and pulled the trigger in this case, the jurors found him guilty of every single count. And like we discussed earlier, the video was the key piece of evidence. They watched the video, it was on tape. And the defense's argument was self-defense, was doing a citizen's arrest. And the jurors must have not bought the defense's argument in this case based on the verdict that we have as a guilty verdict. If they would have bought the defense's argument of a citizen's arrest or self-defense, you would have seen a not guilty verdict. But here, every single man was found guilty of at least one of the murder charges. And now they'll be facing sentencing in the next couple of months.
And when we saw the first charge and count for Travis McMichael, there was an outburst right behind him, and that person had to be escorted out there. There was warnings against that, and that's something a little bit different that we didn't see in the Rittenhouse verdict.
Yes, I mean, this has been a very highly emotional trial, and a lot of family members and friends have been attending the courtroom. I know the defense attorney was trying to ask for a mistrial in regards to families and friends and certain pastors showing up to the trial. So a lot of emotions happen in this trial. You heard an outcry in the courthouse. In there, you heard the judge did address that because the judge wants to keep everything even killed, no matter if you're for the defense or you're for the prosecution or what side of your own. The judge has to remain even kill in their courtroom. So that's why the judge did mention that. But this has been a highly emotional trial. So sometimes the defendant's family have an outcry because they know their family member is facing a life in prison. And a lot of times the victim's family have outcries and outbursts in trials because they know that they finally feel like they've gotten justice in this case.
And now, Ben, tell our viewers now what happens from now until sentencing. What happens in that process? Does for the sentencing, does the defendants, do they get a whole new defense team or no? Is it?
Yeah, usually it's the same defense team that you saw in the courtroom defending. All three of them will be doing the sentencing. But prior to the sentencing, they can have what you call a motion for a mistrial or a motion for a new trial. So tonight or later on this week, you might see a motion submitted by all three defense attorneys to try to get their client a brand new trial based upon any evidence that they felt wasn't presented, based upon any mistakes that they felt that the prosecution may have made or the judge might have made. So they'll see a motion for a new trial. After the motion for the new trial is either granted or not granted, if it's denied, then you proceed to the sentencing. The judge will set a sentencing date. Maybe all three defendants will be sentenced on the same day. And that day, you will see family members talk on behalf of the McMichaels and all the defendants. You might see friends. Also, Ahmaud Arbery, the victim here who was shot and killed, his family members can come and speak on behalf. Ultimately, it'd be up to the judge to decide what the ultimate sentence will be. Because it's a murder charge, they're looking at years in prison, even life in prison. But ultimately, the judge will decide based upon any motions for new trial, any mistrials, or we will proceed to sentencing in the next couple of weeks to months.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, how highly emotional that sentencing trial phase really is, because not only do you hear from the team of the family and the friends of Ahmaud Arbery, but then you also hear from the family members of the defense there. And how does the jury then take away from that and decide then, okay, what do we want to do then for these people for the rest of their lives?
I mean, the jurors are the ones who decide the case. So ultimately, they have a tough decision because they know that based on this decision, this will affect either the McMichaels' lives or will affect Ahmaud Arbery's life. And this is what the judge will have to do. Ultimately, at the sentencing, once they go in front of the judge has that ultimate decision on what decision will be. So the judge will listen to both sides, the victim's family, they'll listen to the prosecution, they'll listen to the defendant's family and friends, and all the attorneys will speak. And at the end of the day, after listening to all what you call mitigation and aggravation evidence. Mitigation is to try to get a lower sentence. Aggravation, what the prosecutor does, is try to get a higher sentence. And once that is heard, the judge will make the ultimate decision, and we will know how many years each defendant will get.
And I also want to talk about, Ben, as the verdict, that first count that was being read for Travis McMichael, he really looked, everyone else, while the charges were being read out, that first one for Travis, he really looked stunned on that first one. Everyone else was kind of, they didn't really show any emotion, but for Travis, it seemed like he was a little taken aback from that first one.
Yes, as an attorney, especially a defense attorney, when you prepare your client, you try to prepare your client for the best case scenario is a not guilty, or even the worst case scenario is a guilty verdict. And here we have a guilty verdict. And no matter how much you prepare your client, the voice from the courtroom when it says guilty or not guilty can definitely affect your client. As we saw a couple of weeks ago in the Rittenhouse case of not guilty, he was crying. In this case, I mean, Travis McMichael was shocked, it looked like it, right? So no matter what the verdict is, you can never prepare your client for the best or the worst. But as you see here, his emotions did come out, and it looks like he was totally shocked at the verdict. I'm sure he was hoping for a not guilty. And I think now reality has sunk in that he could be facing life in prison. So hearing that the words guilty is sinking into his head, and now his emotions did show in the courthouse.
Yeah, and what is that process now for the defendants, where they are now taken away in handcuffs and now thinking about the rest of their lives could be potentially behind bars forever?
Yes, during the trial, if you posted a bond, you're free. You can go home, sleep in your own bed. You can go and travel if you need to, if the judge allows you during the trial. But once a guilty verdict is reached, especially in a felony case, in a felony murder case, the judge revokes all bonds. You instantly, that moment, lose your freedom, and you're handcuffed right there in the courtroom. That means you go back to a jail cell, you're booked, and you are staying there until sentencing. So the only way you can get out, the McMichaels be able to get out, will be if they file a motion for a new trial, or something happens in the appeal process years down the line, and that's the only way they get out. Or else, if the judge sentences them to life in prison in the future, they are facing life in prison.
And that is obviously a long time to think about everything that happened. You got a lot of time to think about the case that was. Let's talk a little bit about the jurors now. So the jurors just wrapped up, and they reached a verdict. What can they do right now? Can they go and talk to their friends and family all about it? And is there a potential for book deals as well?
So yes, during a trial, the jurors cannot talk to anybody about the case, not even their fellow jurors. They're supposed to remain silent. They can't talk to their family members, friends, no one. They can only talk about the case during deliberation. So they've been deliberating, talking about the case, and they can't talk to anybody else except their fellow jurors. Once the verdict is reached, as we just heard, the verdict was reached, now they're free to talk to whoever they want to. They can go write a book deal, they can do TV news interviews, or they don't have to talk to anybody if they don't want to, but they are free to go talk to somebody. And this is where attorneys, we want to go talk to the jurors, to interview them, just to make sure that everything was done correctly. And they looked at the evidence and the rules of law to make sure, because the McMichaels attorneys, for sure, they want to talk to the jurors because they want to try to get a new trial or find some evidence on appeal that they can use based upon whether or not the jurors were biased or they heard something or used the wrong facts of the law. So that the attorneys definitely want to talk to the jurors. They can write a book deal, but however, ultimately the jurors don't have to talk to anybody. They can go home right now and just enjoy their Thanksgiving if they want, or they can go on the courthouse steps and do a press conference and do an interview if they want. It's up to them, and they're free to do whatever they want right now.
And I think as we get more into this whole social media and people wanting to know so much about a case, we see a lot more maybe that the jurors don't speak out, where, you know, when you saw the O.J. Simpson times, we heard jurors speak out. There was books being done, but now it's a little bit different. I know it's almost like the opposite, because we got social media now. People want this so fast, but they also know it comes at a big price there, because if you get your name out there, everybody knows about you.
Of course, Mike, this is the thing about these cases. Some jurors want to become famous. This is their time to shine and be able to get their face out there and write a book or do a movie deal if they want to, because this is a high profile case where the world was watching. But then you also have some jurors who are like, hey, don't talk to me. I want to go back in peace. I want to go about in silence, because you have people on both sides of this case. Some people are going to be really upset with this verdict. Some people are going to be happy with this verdict. And the jurors know that they are a target of all types of people. So if their faces are on social media, if their names are out there in the public, it could be a danger to them too for this case. So some jurors are going to just go back, they're going to try to remain silent and remain anonymous, and they don't want any piece of this case ever again. But you might see some jurors out there who are going to be talking on social media and giving interviews and book deals.
And now for the defendants, how much, now that they have been found guilty there on those murder charges, how much of an opportunity now, I mean, can they still speak to their defense team? Is it daily, or is it more of maybe weekly now?
It's going to be a lot harder now, because before they had cell phones. They were able to, talk to their defense attorneys every day. They could email, but you're limited when you're in the jail. So while you're in the jail, you can't really communicate as much. You might have a couple of times to communicate. You have other people in the jail cell that want to use the phone. Usually a lot of jails only have 1 or 2 phones for you to communicate. So depending on how the jail cell is and how it's set up, you won't have as much access to your attorney. However, the attorneys can go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week and visit. That's the allowable access that you have as an attorney to visit your client. So if you want to visit your client in the morning, at night, at 3 a.m. in the morning, you can. So it'll be up to the attorneys and the clients to communicate that. But with it coming up with Thanksgiving, I'm sure that some of these attorneys are probably going to be going to Thanksgiving. So the McMichaels might not hear from their attorney until next week, maybe.
And now what will, we're hoping to hear maybe from the family soon of Ahmaud Arbery, or maybe people that represent the family. At what point, what do you think that they will be saying? Will they be thanking the jurors and the state? What goes into something like that?
I mean, the people who represent Ahmaud Arbery's family, they will be thanking the prosecution. They'll be thanking probably the judge, the family members, support, the community support. They'll be doing that. And one key element in this that we can discuss is a civil suit. They actually have the chance to actually sue the McMichaels civilly for financial money if the McMichaels have any financial money. So you have what you call a wrongful death suit. So the family members, the attorneys for the victim's family, Ahmaud Arbery's family, will probably definitely give a press conference. We'll talk to the media in regards to this case. But don't be alarmed if you hear a civil suit in the future suing the McMichaels for a wrongful death lawsuit.
Yeah, that's what we saw with the O.J. Simpson case. He was found not guilty in the criminal, but then turned around and was found liable there for the death there of Nicole Brown. And so that was interesting. But now it might be a double whammy now for the family of the McMichaels as well then.
Yes, it's going to be definitely a double whammy. And there's potential federal charges too coming down the pipeline that they might be facing. So this is definitely not over. The McMichaels are going to be facing this case, being sentenced, and even possible a federal case and a civil lawsuit, just like you mentioned in the O.J. Simpson case, where the defendants can be sued civilly for financial money in regards to a settlement for a wrongful death lawsuit. So there's a lot to think about for the McMichaels and the defense attorneys and even the prosecution, because the prosecution is going to want to get the highest amount of sentence at the sentencing. And the defense attorney's now job is to try to reduce the sentence if possible, try to get a new trial, and they're going to be preparing for an appeal based upon any mistakes that might have been made in this trial to get their clients a new trial.
And Ben, as we were listening to the charges being announced here, can you just describe to our viewers what's the difference from felony murder charge to malice murder?
I mean, basically, a felony murder is basically you don't have to be the one who pulled the trigger. If you were there and helping or assisting, that is basically what felony murder is. You could be just driving in your vehicle, but the other gentlemen were charged with felony murder and they were just there, but they didn't pull the trigger. The malice murder, as you heard from the McMichael, he's the one who pulled the trigger, meaning out of malice, out of anger, out of trying to almost intentionally kill the person. So that's where you see the difference there. And that's where this is for the viewers to understand is you could be charged with a murder case. You can be convicted as you see, even though you weren't there that pulled the trigger. You were there on scene, but you didn't pull the trigger. But if the jury believes that you participated in this, you can be charged and found guilty of what you call felony murder.
Okay, thank you for breaking that down. I know a lot of people were wondering, okay, what's that difference there, and especially for Travis McMichael for getting the clean sweep there, and now it all comes down to sentencing, and how much of a delay will we see? I mean, from the verdict being reached now and being delivered to when sentencing is. Can you explain maybe the timeline that is going to be happening from now until then?
Usually in a normal case, sentencing is within a month from the verdict being reached. But in this case, you might see the defense attorneys trying to push out sentencing for maybe 2 months or even 3 months, because they know that this is a big deal for their clients. Once the judge renders the sentence, that is forever. That is final unless you win on appeal. And it's hard to win on appeal. So as the defense attorneys, you try to push out sentencing as long as you can, so that way you can present the most evidence there to try to see if there's any way to try to get a new trial, to try to get the judge to lighten the sentence, because once the sentence is done, it's final. So that's why you will see probably the defense attorneys might try to push this case out to past Christmas into the new year in order to give them more time to prepare for the sentencing. Of course, the prosecution, they probably want to get this over with. They probably want a quick and fast sentencing. They want the victim's family to come and speak and have influence on the judge too. So that way, every single defendant can be sentenced to a high sentence or even life. So that's what the victim's family and the prosecution will be gunning for when sentencing is made.
And we were just seeing just how the timeline of events happened. I mean, this happened back in early of 2020, and we all remember just what a year 2020 definitely was. This happening right before the pandemic, and then everything happening with the pandemic, and then, of course, with George Floyd. So there was so much going on in 2020 that, for a lot of people, and because the video came out so late, this whole case really wasn't in the public eye in the very beginning.
Yes, that was the thing about this case. This case had been going on for months and nobody knew about it. But the cell phone video for one of the defendants, they actually turned in the cell phone video in thinking that this case would have helped them to exonerate them from all charges and not even be charged. It backfired, unfortunately, for them because they turned in the video. And once they turned in the video, the prosecutors were able to look at the evidence and reevaluate this whole case. And that's only then were these defendants charged because they saw the video. So America saw the video, the whole world saw the video, the prosecutor saw this video. And like we discussed earlier, in order for the prosecutor to bring a case beyond a reasonable doubt, you have to have enough evidence. So without this cell phone video that was shown in court and that was taken by the own defendants, this case might not even been brought. As you saw, it wasn't brought, but not until the cell phone video happened, that's when all these murder charges were brought against all three defendants.
I mean, that video was such a gift for the prosecution when you look back at it. In what world do you think the defense team for that defendant thought, hey, this is really going to help us. Let's give this video away. I mean, what was the thinking there?
I mean, right now, I'm sure they're banging their heads against the wall saying that was a dumb, stupid move of us doing that. I mean, now they know that this video was in their possession, and they were thinking that if this video, we're going to show it to the prosecution, we're going to show it to the law enforcement, and this would exonerate them. But for this video being shown, these three defendants would probably be walking free today or not even charged. So that's why cell phone video evidence is so important in trials, because without evidence, the prosecution can never bring their case. So the defense attorney, it backfired. That's the thing about trials. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose as an attorney. And sometimes you bring evidence that might think will help you, but the evidence you might think will help you actually backfires. As you saw in this case, it actually hurt all three defendants, and they were found guilty of murder based upon this cell phone video.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it's something where they're thinking, they probably think about it every minute, every hour of the day. Why, oh, why did we release this video here? It gave such ammunition and really firepower for the prosecution. And then everyone was seeing it and then got involved there as well. Closing up here. We are seeing just different shots available to us outside of the courthouse. There we're seeing reactions from people, but ultimately we want to hear from the family. And when they come out, and the family and friends of Ahmaud Arbery, it's going to be a moment for them to finally talk about the justice that they have been waiting and waiting and waiting on.
Yes, I mean, they've been waiting for justice ever since February of 2020 of last year. So this will finally get them to be able to express themselves to the public, to the media, to everybody, to let the world know how they have felt for this past year and a half waiting for justice. As we know, in February, the three men, they weren't charged, and they were feeling that justice wasn't served. But not until the video happened, not until the three men were charged, that's when they felt some sort of justice. And today is a finality part of a step towards justice for the family of victims once they feel that their accusers or the people who murdered their family member, Ahmaud Arbery, was shot and killed. Now they feel some sort of justice based upon the jurors' verdict.
And since they weren't charged in the beginning, I still could just go back to that, and I'm thinking about it too, where they weren't charged in the beginning, so why give up the video? I could see if you were charged in the beginning, be like, hey, you know what, we do have video, this is what happened, maybe try to clear us up, but it seemed like, you know, they were giving up more of their position than needed to be in the beginning.
Yes, as an attorney, you talk to your client and you strategize on what you should do in the courtroom, what evidence you should give up, what evidence you shouldn't give up. And if you have evidence in your own possession, sometimes you can keep the evidence, sometimes you have to give it, right? But the only reason why these three men were charged is because one of the defendants had a cell phone video of them. The person with the cell phone video didn't pull the trigger, didn't shoot Ahmaud Arbery. However, that's why they were charged and found guilty of felony murder, because they happened to be there. If the jurors felt that they participated in this act by chasing Ahmaud Arbery while he was running. So right now, I'm sure the McMichaels, the third defendant, Roddie, I believe they're probably a little bit upset now and probably wondering why in the world did we give up this video when we could have been maybe exonerated without this video.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, when you think about this case, it was a case about where the defense was calling for self-defense, but the state and the prosecutors really, I felt like, as we were watching this trial all go down, I felt like the prosecution had such a good stance on really driving home the fact of, you know, it's one thing to be on the lookout for your community and be on the lookout for things that might be happening, but when you actually try to go and instigate without calling the police right away, and if you are the aggressor, you really can't then call self-defense if something bad happens in the meantime.
Yes, I think this is what makes very a difference of self-defense, as we saw last week in the Rittenhouse trial versus this trial. In the Rittenhouse trial, you saw that a lot of the jurors believed, and there was evidence showing that Kyle Rittenhouse might have been attacked, might have been the first aggressor. In this case, the evidence clearly showed, as the jurors felt, that these three men were chasing Ahmaud Arbery, that Ahmaud Arbery was not the aggressor. He was unarmed at the time. So I think that's what's the very distinction between Kyle Rittenhouse's trial and verdict that we saw last week versus three men, McMichaels, this week, is because one person was the aggressor here, the McMichaels, and that's why they found them guilty of felony murder and malice murder. Because when you're the aggressor, you can't really say citizen's arrest. You can't really use self-defense when you're the one that's aggressive with a weapon, with a gun, and you kill somebody and the other person is running and fleeing. The defense of self-defense is not used, it can't be used in the way that the jurors can find a not guilty. That's why they found him not guilty here, because they didn't believe the act of self-defense was applied in this case.
And, you know, Ben, I'm also thinking, okay, so this happened back in February of 2020, and I'm wondering what the defense might have been thinking when we got into the summer months there and everything happened in Minnesota with George Floyd. And then we saw just a huge response there on social media, as well as really across the country where there was protests and riots happening with George Floyd. Do you think they felt the pressure starting in the summer months in their own case? For their defendants when they saw, okay, wait, there is a tidal wave going on in this country. It's not just happening in Minnesota, it's happening across the country.
Yes, this case was in the public eye. So the defendants knew this, the jurors knew this, the prosecution, defense, everybody has been following of last year of George Floyd with Derek Chauvin, the person, the former officer who was accused of killing George Floyd and found guilty. Last week we had Kyle Rittenhouse. So you've had other trials prior to this trial. So the defense attorneys, the prosecution, and the jurors have been watching what's been going on social media, what's been going on in the news, been watching all these trials lead up to this day for this trial. So I'm sure that these jurors, the prosecution, defense, had it in the back of their heads that this case and what happened prior was going to affect the jurors, the judge, and everybody. And today you did see a guilty verdict, and I would definitely assume that these jurors knew about the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and these other trials. But ultimately, the jurors are supposed to base their decision on the facts and the law, and they can't use social media. They can't use any outside influences. So hopefully these jurors looked at the facts and the law. You saw they came back today. They watched the video again. And based on this video, watching it again, we believe that they came to this decision based upon the video of all guilty counts for Mr. McMichael, the first Travis McMichael, and the other people of felony murder.
And Ben, I can't remember a time lately that we've had really back-to-back trials that have been such high profile like this for really for different instances. For Kyle, it was more about self-defense, and this one, civil rights, was such a high component there as well. But I mean, from one week to another, I mean, we had just these high-profile trials that we've been watching.
Yes, I mean, it's very rare to see these high-profile trials, and like you mentioned, Michael, it all stemmed from what happened last year with the killing of George Floyd. So these cases are back to back. A lot of times as an attorneys, you might want to continue these cases and push them out to give you more time, more of a breather. But it's very rare to see so many trials that happen within a year, because most of the times murder cases take over a year to 2 or 3 years before they even get to trial. But these defendants, the prosecution, I guess they wanted a fast and speedy trial. And we've seen back-to-back trials in Kyle Rittenhouse, George Floyd, and now here with the Ahmaud Arbery and McMichael's case today. Very rare, but it's very unique. And I'm assuming that these judges wanted to get these trials going and wanted to get these trials finished, so that way they won't lag on for another year or two.
Absolutely. Ben Taylor, a legal analyst, thank you so much for your time and really breaking it down for us, not only before the verdict came, but directly after. We truly appreciate it, and thank you again for all of your insight and knowledge.
Yeah, good seeing you, Michael. Thank you anytime.
Yes, we will.